What's going on, guys? K-Pine here and welcome back. And in this video, I'll be featuring an incredibly busted team in the Halloween Cup. Shadowgrimer Lead, Azu Safe Swap, and Wigglytuff Closer. Through the 8 sets I've played with this team, I've gone 31-9, had 0 negative sets, climbed up from the mid 2800s to the mid 3100s, and as of right now, I'm top 50 on the global leaderboards. The main goal of this team is to use Azu as a safe swap to bait out any poison or steel types for your Grimer to take care of, so your Wiggly can run through the rest. Speaking of Grimer, yes, the non-shadow can work, but the shadow is preferred. Also, Grimer can work as a good core breaker to some teams that disrespect it. And realistically, the only games you're gonna lose are a double poison back line that does not involve one of the poison darks, so like Clodsire and Toxapex, for example. Other than that, basically every single match is winnable, hence the 31-9 run in leaderboard elo. And with that, let's get right into the battles. Alright, getting to the first battle, we lead Shadow Grimer into Guzzlord. Pretty neutral matchup, but we do have 2 better answers to this in the back, so we are going to safe swap into our Azu to check for that steel or poison type, and out comes that poison type in Clodsire. Now it's important to throw on good timing in this matchup, because with that double resisted Dragon Tail from that Guzzlord onto your Azu, and then incoming in Clodsire that has Sludge Bomb, if you throw on good timing, you will actually just barely survive 2 Sludge Bombs to get off a second Ice Beam and get Switch or Shield advantage here. As you'll see, my Azu is just barely able to hang on. I should probably preface that with you need a really high ranked Azu for that to be the case. But also don't expect that to happen every time with your Azu when they counter swap it with a Clodsire, because say there's something else on the lead, like a Shadow Golurk as a Mud Slapper, and you safe swap your Azu, that Mud Slap damage then puts you in the 2 Sludge Bomb range. So just expect that to happen. So don't expect that to happen every time, but do expect it to be pretty consistent on a Guzzlord lead. As you'll see in the back, it's a double poison line, but it's not the double poison I mentioned earlier in Clodsire and Toxapex, it's a Shadow Drapion. And with it being a Shadow Drapion or a regular Drapion, Wigglytuff is able to put in work here. As we bring the Drapion just low enough where I can then let this move go from the Drapion, my lose condition here is shielding a Crunch and them getting a Crunch debuff. So instead they go for the Aqua Tail, and I would be able to farm down the Drapion, but they smartly pivot out instead, where I can get to 1 Mud Bomb and 2 Mud Bombs to finish off the Guzzlord. And then 1 more Mud Slap finishes off the Drapion, and that's a GG's. Next battle, we lead Shadow Grimer into Shadow Scizor. Now this is a matchup where you want to stay in, obviously, because you have your Wigglytuff behind it, but you play out the 2 shield here. Make sure you're throwing on good timing. If they let you throw first, it will be after 5 Mud Slaps, but most of the time your opponent will throw after 7, which is good timing for them. So they get off the first move, that's fine. You just shield it, throw 1 more Mud Slap, and then the Mud Bomb, which if your opponent shields, you will then shield right back and commit to the Mud Slap down. And now here in this matchup with the Shadow Scizor out of the way, your backline tends to do well into their backlines, and you can gauge it based off of what they come in with. If they come in with like a Shadow Golurk or they come in with a Greninja, you just save all that energy and then pivot to your Azu, where if they then swap out of that matchup, it's just going to be an automatic win because you have your Wigglytuff for either of those mods. As you'll see here, they had that Greninja, we pivoted to our Azu, they swap out into their own Azu, and that's just game over. Because again, I have tons of energy stored onto my Grimer as well, so I can just chip their Azu down with my Azu as we trade play roughs back and forth. I land that play rough, and I just stay in here. I force them to throw to take me out. Doesn't quite take me out yet, so I just hard swap into Wigglytuff because they weren't going to reach another move on the Azu. And they come in their Greninja, they get to land a Hydro Cannon, but guess what? They're not going to reach a second as we get the charm down. And my opponent concedes GG's. And that works pretty similarly to a Greninja safe swap as well, where if they safe swap Greninja and then you come in your Wigglytuff right away, you will get the full charm down before they reach to Hydro Cannon. So you could just no shield everything and take switch there regardless. Now in this matchup, good lead in the Azu. They safe swap into a Forretress, and that's fine. I'm just gonna stay here with my Shadow Grimer, and I don't necessarily need to take it out. I just need to get it really low, right? Now my opponent doesn't build up to an Earthquake, so I can just let it go. If they built up to an Earthquake, I would have respected it with the shield, but they didn't. So I'm able to actually get shield advantage here, and another Mirror Shot won't quite take me out. So I'll be able to get switch advantage and shield advantage unless they throw again, which they do, and I'm perfectly fine letting that go because now the Forretress is dealt with to a reasonable point from back line. And here I come in with my Azu. You'll notice that in key situations where if you have to stay in a lead for some reason and deal with it with your Grimer and your Grimer's gone, and now all that you have left is your Azu or your Wigglytuff, you never want to come in with your Wigglytuff. You always want to come in with your Azu, because if they have another Steel type or a Poison type, you want them to bring it out onto your Azu so your Azu can chip it, because otherwise it's just going to shred through your Wigglytuff. And as you'll see here, this is a prime example of it. They had a Shadow Scizor back. If I came in Wigglytuff, that would just shred through my Wiggly. But I come in Azu, they don't want to mirror down energy their Azu, so they bring in the Shadow Scizor instead. And then once that gets dealt with, this game is over because we're able to chip it with our own Azu, and then we can bring in our Wiggly to finish it off with Charm. So that play rough does land. They land a play rough on me. And now here I'm just going to instantly swap. And once my opponent sees that they no longer have a win con left, they will concede. Or at least they should concede. They land the play rough. Looks like they're playing it out. That's perfectly fine too. I overfarm here, just play to the CMP tie with the Swift. And this will be enough to take out the Azu. GG's. Next battle. Shadow Grimer into Azu. Brilliant lead. See what they want to do. And now they stay in this matchup. So it appears that they are core broken by the Shadow Grimer. And what I actually like to do here is if your opponent stays in with the Azu, you just commit shields with them, right? Like there's absolutely no reason for you to let it go because they are core broken. You want to keep your Grimer around. So I like to overfarm on the first one just in case they are going to play for a catch, as one Sludge Bomb won't KO. But for the second one, I throw it right away on the CMP tie because with those Mud Slap damage, that second Sludge Bomb will be enough to KO. They come in with a Shadow Golurk, which does massive Mud Slap damage to my Grimer. I just pivot the Azu. They come out of that matchup because they don't want to deal with super effective bubble damage. Now I have the Shadow Golurk on my Wigglytuff, which one, those charms will shred through, and two, resist that Shadow Punch. So they're forced to build up to their big nuke move. And by then, those charms just have shredded through the Golurk at that point. Plus, the Azu is able to deal with the Drapion here, since they are not on Sludge Bomb pretty well. And also see here, down goes Drapion, in comes Golurk. Those charms do a massive number to it. I do commit a shield to respect that dynamic punch, which it is. And now we can just easily farm it all the way down. And that is a good game. GG's. Next battle. Shadow Golurk into Shadow Drifblim. Terrible lead for us. We are going to swap into our Azu. And if they stay in this matchup, we are going to go for that Ace Beam before they get to the Shadow Ball, because we want to reset that one turn it takes to swap so we don't get denied an entire bubble. But you have to be watching for that, because oftentimes your opponent will go for a catch. So once you build up to that Ice Beam, wait another turn, make sure you see that Astonish come through, and then throw the Ice Beam. And if you see them swap like they did here into the Azu, then you can go for the play rough because you were watching for that catch. And here I could play for switch, which I'm going to do, as I need to get my Grimer off of that Drifblim. So it's not I could play for switch, it's that I should play for switch, especially when my opponent gives me an opportunity like this to play for switch. And unfortunately, my opponent does reach a last second play rough, as I'm not quite able to get to the bubble down. And this is play rough range, so I will have to give up my final shield. But at least I do get switch, and I'm able to put the Wigglytuff on the Drifblim, which is a dominant matchup for it. They come in with a Clodsire, and oh, I was hoping for any other poison type than Clodsire, because a Clodsire Earthquake just straight up one-shot Shadow Grimer. So any other poison type or steel type, I would have been golden here with that mud slap damage, but it just happened to be that Clodsire. So we're going to see what we can do. In comes that Shadow Drifblim, and they land 2 Icy Winds. We get the full Charm down, which is very nice. And now we get to debuff this Clodsire with an Icy Wind, which is fantastic because we're no longer in 1 Earthquake range now, right? They let that go, or they give up their first shield to that. But again, like I said, that attack debuff was very important here because we are no longer in 1 Earthquake range. My opponent throws on good timing to land that Earthquake. And if we survive this well enough, we can go for that Mud Slap down and the Bubble Down play. But I'm just not able to. Oh, that is so unfortunate. Looks like by a single turn there, I had to swap out. Otherwise, that Poison Sting, as you'll see, would have KO'd. So if I just had a tad more HP, we would have been able to take that one. But we were not. So GG's to my opponent. Well played. Next battle. Another Drifblim lead, looking for a little bit of redemption here. Going into that Azu. They don't throw 5 Astonishes first and then swap to catch. Instead, they just come in Drapion right away. And against a Drapion safe swap, you want to be going for Ice Beams. You don't want to go for that Play Rough, you want to go for that Ice Beam. Because if you go for that Ice Beam, not only does it allow you to win the 0 shield scenario, but it also allows you to win the 2 shield scenario. That is if they're running Aqua Tail Crunch. My opponent here is running Sludge Bomb, so I'm not able to win the 2 shield scenario, but we do win the 0 shield scenario, and that's fantastic because now we get our Grimer on the Clodsire and our Wigglytuff on the Drifblim. We will have to give up a shield because they got a nice energy advantage with those Poison Stings. And now here, we wait a turn. We're looking for the catch. We're expecting them to try and catch that Mud Bomb. So we look for that Poison Sting to come through. We don't see it come through. We see the swap. We counter swap into our Wiggles. And these Astonishes are doing nothing. It will take 3 Icy Winds to take us out, which my opponent will not be able to reach. Finish charming down the Drifblim. In comes the Clodsire. We fire off an Icy Wind right away. No need for good timing here. I don't want to risk being in 2 Poison Sting range right there, and I want to get that move off. So we just go straight for the move. And now this is game over, right? As we saw how it was last time, this Clodsire is debuffed. So even if they did bait there and reached an Earthquake, I would just be able to survive that Earthquake because, again, they are debuffed, which is fortunate for us that we were able to get that Icy Wind debuff off. And instead of it coming down to a bait call, it just came down to a Mud Slap down. Next battle, Clodsire lead, Azu safe swap. You stay in, you throw that Sludge Bomb right away. You take advantage of that 1 turn it takes to swap. And then once you land that Sludge Bomb, get that shield for them, you're going to mirror your own Azu. Right, they have a hard answer to fairies in the lead. They safe swap a fairy themselves. So you're most likely reading that your Wiggly is going to be valuable in the back. And so you come in with your own Azu and you want to maintain switch, which is why you throw those 5 Mud Slaps first for that Mud Slap chip damage, as well as force that shield from them. Now they go for a Play Rough. That's perfectly fine. You get to go for a Play Rough of your own. Play Rough does land on the Azu. And here, I do commit a shield. It would have been close if I let it go. I didn't want to risk it being a simultaneous KO if I let that Play Rough go or them taking switch. So I did commit a shield. Try and go for that Bubble Down, which would be nice because we get to leave with an Ice Beam to chip that Clodsire. But they hard pivot into the Clodsire, so I can then hard pivot into the Grimer. And land that Mud Bomb, and I will give up a shield just because the Clodsire is a little too healthy for my Wigglytuff to comfortably deal with it. Unfortunately, they do reach a last second move on 1 HP. It's just a Sludge Bomb, which is fine. We get the Mud Shot down. It's a Mandibuzz in the back, and this is game over, right? We read that they were weak to Wiggles in the back, which is why on an Azu safe swap, we stayed in, threw that Sludge Bomb, got the shield, got that Mud Slap damage, and then mirrored. So I come into my Azu here, get their final shield with the Play Rough. They land an Ace, not enough to take me out. We make yet another Play Rough. This will do great damage to the Mandy. They will snarl down my Azu, but 2 charms will do it as the first one goes through, and the second one will take it out after they land that Ace. Down it goes, and then one more will finish off the Azu as my opponent concedes. Jeez. Next battle, Shadow Grimer into Ariados. Fantastic lead. If they stay in, so do you. But in this matchup, my opponent swaps out into a dark type, which happens to be a Mandibuzz. We meet it right away with the Azu, and by doing so, we're just going to be able to charm this Mandy down all the way, regardless of them being on Air Slash. Now, I kept this matchup in here as a good example of counter swapping against your opponent's safe swaps. If they safe swap into like a Mandibuzz, a Galarian Moltres, a Sableye, a Greninja, you want to instantly come in with your Wigglytuff. Multiple reasons why you want to come in with your Wigglytuff there and not Azu. First one is you'll get the full charm down without committing a shield or throwing energy and leaving loaded on energy yourself to start firing off Swifts or Icy Winds. The second reason is because a lot of the times that dark safe swap is a bait out for an Azu, so their back Pokemon doesn't have to see it. But because you're running double Fairy, if you come in with your Wigglytuff there, not only do you guarantee your Wigglytuff has a good matchup away from a Steel type or a Poison type, but you save your Azu for that back Mon, which if by some chance they're safe swapping a dark type where their closer isn't another dark type and it's actually like a Poison or Steel type, your Azu is going to have a better matchup there than your Wiggly. So it's safer all around and does you better on the energy front by bringing in your Wigglytuff instead of the Azu on the counter swap. As Grimer is able to close out that match. GG's. Next battle, Shadow Grimer into Shadow Victory Bell. Fantastic lead. Really good, it's avoiding our back line. They safe swap into a Shadow Golurk and we meet it with the Azu. Fun fact with this matchup, also be very, very quick on your safe swap into your Azu. They safe swap into their Golurk, you throw that one single Mud Slap with your Grimer, meet it with your Azu. If you throw 2, it kind of throws this off a little bit. But if you have an extremely high ranked Azu, there's a chance based off if the Golurk's more attack weighted or defensive weighted. If the Golurk's a little more defensively weighted and you have an extremely high ranked Azu, you can actually reach a Mud Slap bulk point against the Golurk, where you can tank both of their Shadow Punches and commit to the full bubble down. You won't be able to do that with a regular Grimer just because you need that 1 Mud Slap of damage too from the Shadow version as opposed to the normal. But the Shadow version to the Azu, they have the extremely high ranked one. You get that Mud Slap, a bulk point, and you will just barely be able to survive that second Shadow Punch plus those Mud Slaps and bubble it all the way down. If you don't have that Shadow Grimer, you're running the regular Grimer, or you don't have that extremely high ranked Azu, that's fine. You just read that first Shadow Punch, you'll go, okay, I won't be able to survive the second one. So you just fire off an Ice Beam before they reach that second Shadow Punch, and you're all good to go. No worries there. Next battle, Shadow Grimer Lead. You just commit to the Mud Slap down. You don't want to throw a move because you don't want your opponent to be able to take switch there, leave with energy, and force that shield back, as well as get some Mud Slap damage. So you're in the Shadow Grimer mirror, you just Mud Slap all the way down. If your opponent throws a move, you will shield and then Mud Slap them down. If they don't, then you just Mud Slap them all the way down. And again, like I mentioned earlier in the video, if you stay in the lead and your Grimer gets taken out and you're left with both your Azu and Wiggly, you're going to come in with your Azu there. In this situation, my opponent swapped out into a Mandibuzz, so I was able to put onto the Wiggly, which was fantastic. But if they throw a move, you shield, you get the Mud Slap down, read what they come in with. If they come in with a Fairy type, then they're most likely running the double Fairy back line. You get to throw the Sludge Bomb, get that shield back, get additional Mud Slap damage, and then you get to have alignment however you want. But if they come in with a dark type, like in this matchup, they had a Mandibuzz, you're going to want to save that energy, pivot into your Azu, where they're going to swap out of that matchup because it's a Mandibuzz into an Azu. But by them swapping out, you now put your Wigglytuff on their Mandibuzz, as well as bait out their third Pokemon, which again, if it's that Steel type, you have, or Poison type, you have all that energy on your Grimer, as well as the ability to get off a couple extra Mud Slaps to set you up perfectly for that endgame. If there's any team I highly recommend running in the Halloween Cup, it's this team. 31-9 run, top 50 on the global leaderboards, it has the results to back it up. So hopefully this video will help you if you do decide to run it. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. I really do appreciate you. If you enjoyed it, please drop a like, subscribe, and comment down below. Love to hear what you have to say. And with that, I'll catch you in the next one.